Why did Elon Musk tweet me over the weekend? Well, it's the top story today, and it's starting to explode. And it's the top story today, but I got to point out to you, thanks to National Review last week, if you listened to my show on Friday of last week in the third hour, you were ahead of the story. You knew about this story before it made major waves over the weekend. I got to it first on the radio. Jay Jones, the Democrats' attorney general candidate in Virginia, in all sorts of hot water over his text messages. And I got to put this in context for you. It's very, very important that you understand the context here. Jay Jones, in a private text message to a Republican member of the Virginia House of Delegates, said he was upset that the former Speaker of the House of Delegates in Virginia had the audacity to say nice things about a dead Democrat at that dead Democrat's funeral. You understand this, right? This is all the context you have to have here. This is very important. You understand. The Democrats have nominated Jay Jones to be their candidate for Attorney General in Virginia. And in 2022, in a private text exchange, Jay Jones was upset that the then Virginia Speaker of the House, Todd Gilbert, said nice things about a Democrat at that Democrat's funeral. And Jay Jones's response in a private exchange was to wish that Todd Gilbert, the then Speaker of the House, would be assassinated. In fact, he said if he was given 2 bullets and said to pick between Pol Pot Hitler and the Speaker of the Virginia House, he'd put 2 bullets in the Speaker of the Virginia House's head, and then had the audacity to take it a step further and say that he wanted the Speaker's children to also die, preferably in the arms of their mother. He wanted to assassinate the Speaker of the House and watch his 2 children die in their mother's arms. Because in his words, you have to know tragedy to change your political opinion. You have to suffer. And he wanted Todd Gilbert to suffer. He wanted Todd Gilbert's wife to suffer. That's the Democrats' attorney general pick. And as you know and I know, your private text exchanges, you're not playing to the crowd there. You're being candid and honest. And in his candid honesty, he wanted to assassinate a politician from another party for the audacity of saying nice things about a Democrat at a funeral and also kill the man's 2 kids. You know what the real scandal is, though? The same man, Jay Jones, was arrested in Virginia for doing 116 miles an hour in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. He was sentenced to 1,000 hours community service in lieu of prison. He spent 500 of the 1,000 hours working on his own political campaign and filled out the paperwork to obfuscate what he was doing so the judge didn't realize he was doing political fundraising for himself as his community service. That's the real scandal here. The man who wants to be the Attorney General in Virginia used his community service sentence to politically fundraise for himself. That's the real scandal. But what's really going to get the traction in the aftermath of 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump and the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the other violence of progressives out there these days is that this man in a private exchange wanted to murder a politician and his 2 children and said that casually and defended himself, insisting it was the case, that it was not somehow out of line for him to want to do these sorts of things, that it was normal, par for the course, just him in a private conversation wanting to murder the Speaker of the Virginia House and his 2 children, and not a single Democrat will tell him to get out of the race. Not a single Democrat. In fact, the Speaker of the House in Virginia, the current Speaker, the new Speaker, the Democratic Speaker, Speaker Scott, actually went to a church and stood in a church pulpit and told the congregants in the church pulpit to ignore it all.
So we need to understand something. we have to be mature in our thinking and how we vote. We can't get distracted because they want us to get distracted by a text message here or something else. Stay focused.
You got that, stay focused. Now, here's the galling part. The Speaker of the House, Don Scott, in Virginia, he started his speech this way.
Thank you, Tavares. Thank you, church, this morning. I want to thank you all for having me up here today. I come, first of all, with two things on my mind. The first thing is a good friend of mine, a delegate from Prince William County. Her name is Candy Munden King. Last night, I got a call about 3 a.m. And it's a great time to have to come to church. I was planning on being here earlier, Pastor, so I apologize for my tardiness. But I was in Portsmouth minding my business and planning to come straight here. But at 3 a.m., I got a call that her 15-year-old daughter had died. She had suffered from sickle cell anemia her entire life. She died a painful death with her parents watching. Her dad actually was the one that tried to resuscitate her, and she died in his arms. But our God is good.
That's the Speaker of the House in Virginia, Don Scott, who begins this speech in a pulpit behind a cross in front of a stained glass window of Christ, telling this congregation about Candy Munden King, a Virginia House of Delegates representative who lost her daughter Saturday night. The daughter died in her arms. And he ended his speech telling those same Christians in that same church to ignore the text messages of the Virginia Democrat Jay Jones, who wanted another mother to watch her children die in her arms to teach her a political lesson. That's where we are with the Democrats in Virginia and nationally who won't do anything. Now, I got to give it to Joe Scarborough, actually, on Morning Joe. Joe started this conversation off on MSNBC, and you're probably not going to hear about it anywhere on MSNBC other than his show, where he has editorial control.
Coming up, an attorney general candidate in Virginia is apologizing for his texts about a state lawmaker. We'll go through what the messages said.
Probably be forced to withdraw from the race, and probably is doing a lot there.
All right, Morning Joe will be right back.
That was this morning, and then here's the conversation that actually Joe stepped aside and just let the progressives talk. Listen to this.
They were text messages, horrible. I didn't want to read them out loud. I'm wondering how the text messages
deeply disturbing messages that have been swiftly condemned across the political aisle. The Republicans have tried to tie this to the Congresswoman Spanberger, the gubernatorial candidate. She did very quickly denounce them. But it's unclear whether this attorney general candidate will stay in the race. I think there's a growing sense that he probably should not. We heard President Trump last night. But even some Democratic leaders, John Hyman, have started to say, like, look, this is inappropriate. You can't, and especially at a time right now with such concern about violent rhetoric and political violence.
Who says that?
Yeah, that this is just way beyond the line.
I would say, not to be too much on the high horse. It's wildly inappropriate under any circumstances today, tomorrow, 10 years ago, 6 months ago. I think the pressure is going to be on Spanberger and for the party to ask this candidate to just quit the race, because just both, it's the right thing, and also the political splashback. You don't want to mess with this right now.
Who says that?
I think the right thing to do is basically this guy should do everyone a favor and step out of the race.
Yeah.
Now, notice though that they won't actually say what he said. Mika does, and they were too horrible to say. Let me tell you what he said. Actually, you know what? Let me play the Winsome Sears ad now, targeting Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic candidate for governor in Virginia, who is a very milquetoast candidate, who is a very focus group candidate, who refuses to answer questions from the press, hides to avoid answering for the press. When she does, it always ends. Abigail Spanberger's been on the campaign trail campaigning with Jay Jones, the Democrat. Listen to this, and you'll get a sense of the man's text messages as Winsome Sears, the Republican candidate for governor, incorporates some interviews the guy has now had to do as damage control.
We start with breaking news from the campaign trail.
Jay Jones is under fire tonight.
Jay Jones is under fire.
Jay Jones is under fire after messages he sent in 2022 saying former Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert should be shot.
I
I'm excited about this ticket.
It's been great to be out on the campaign trail with Jay Jones.
You said Gilbert's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views.
We deserve an attorney general who will stand up for the people of Virginia.
Jones said, quote, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head.
Let your rage fuel you.
Jones doubled down, saying, quote, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes.
How can Virginians trust a man who said something so horrific, so callously?
Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy.
You got that? That's what Jay Jones said. Only when people suffer personally do they change their mind on policy. He said that Todd Gilbert and his wife were evil and breeding little fascists. And he wanted Todd Gilbert to get 2 bullets in the back of his head while his wife watched the kids die. That's who the Democrats have put up in Virginia. And you know, all of the loud voices who scream, but Trump, oh, you Republicans, but Trump, they can't even denounce this. The Democratic politicians, you know, on MSNBC, they're saying Democratic politicians are starting to come out and say you should drop out. Not a single Democratic politician has done that. That's spin. That's not truth. No Democrat has come out, including Abigail Spanberger, to say Jay Jones should just get out of the race. They won't do that. Why? They don't want to lose the race. They're putting their political opportunism ahead of what's right, and they say that's what Donald Trump does, and it's wrong. So it's wrong when Donald Trump and Republicans do it, and by the way, I agree. But they're doing it now, too. They're allowing Donald Trump yet again to set their behavioral parameters. They say this stuff is bad, it shouldn't happen, but Donald Trump does it, so it's okay for them to do it, too. You know who's a beacon of moral clarity here is David French. No. David actually went online and risked the ire of the left who have now embraced him and said Jay Jones should drop out of the race. And if you're on the left and say, but the Republicans are worse, then you're part of the problem. We can normalize cause for physical violence, or we can step back from the brink. That's the choice. He's right. And the Democrats are doubling down on he should stay in the race. Democratic operatives in Virginia are, first of all, they're trying to say this is AI, but Jay Jones has now admitted it and apologized for it. You know, and then the national spin. It would not have come up on Meet the Press except for my buddy Mark Short.
But can I also say in your interview with Leader Jeffries that can we stop with the pearl-clutching about the mean tweets and sombrero tweets? That this week it came to light that a Democrat candidate for Attorney General of the state of Virginia called for the assassination of a political opponent, called for the assassination of that political opponent's family, and there's not one national Democrat calling for him to step aside. Not one. It's disgraceful.
Nira, let me let you respond to that because that is going to be a big story, I think, in the coming days.
I mean, I absolutely think people should criticize that 100%. Yeah. I think it was a private conversation he had, but still awful and disgusting. Mm-hmm. Wasn't calling for it public, but terrible. And it should be condemned. But then we should condemn that. But then you should condemn when the president calls the Democratic Party the party of Satan.
Yeah, in all fairness.
Why don't we just say both of those things?
I think I've paid the price for saying for political violence on our side.
But yeah, I agree with that. But let's just criticize other Republicans or the president for not saying safe.
Notice how she's trying to shift it, and she says, but it was a private conversation. That's important. Yes, because Democrats are having lots of private conversations wishing death on Republicans, which is why she's willing to say, oh, but it was a private conversation. Don't look at hers, I suspect. But that's what makes it more damning, is Jay Jones wasn't out on the campaign trail blustering like Donald Trump does. He was having a private conversation with someone saying that another politician needed 2 bullets in the back of his head and his kids needed to die too. That's where the Democratic Party is right now. After 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump that they cheered on, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and this party seems a little bit too comfortable with the idea of assassination.